Welcome back to Market to the Mavens, the ultimate podcast for all things marketing, brought to you by Life in Motion. I'm your host, Tori, and with me, I have our lovely co-host, Heather.
Hello.
And today, we are actually at my house in a new location, so it's a little
Surprise!
bit different. So we have this whole setup here. It's kind of comfortable.
Kind of fancy.
Yep. Today, we have some really exciting marketing topics planned. We're going to talk about Twitter Spaces and the DeSantis presidential announcement. And then we're going to get into generational marketing and what you should be doing to market to each generation. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and also leave us a review. That's super helpful. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Market to the Mavens to get current updates on topics we've covered, extra updates on industry news that we aren't able to cover in the podcast, and of course, teasers for upcoming podcast episodes. So go ahead and give us a follow on those social media accounts. So let's just get right into our first topic, which is going to be the Twitter Spaces, which you had mentioned that this has been around for a while.
Yeah, they have launched this, over before Elon Musk took over, but it seems that they're kind of revisiting this and trying to bring it back and make it a little bit more obvious. And this goes right in line with Tucker Carlson. Their Twitter is really trying to get into video and audio podcasts and other things. They understand that there is a huge market there that they're missing by only being a platform that offers posting.
Right. Okay. So I have the resource directly from Twitter about what Twitter Spaces is. And the first thing that it says is Spaces is a way to have live audio conversations on Twitter. Anyone can join, listen, and speak in Spaces on Twitter for iOS and Android. Currently, you can listen in a space on web. So they also mentioned that you can have up to 13 people speaking in one Twitter Spaces event. And how to use Twitter Spaces, it goes into how to log in, and I'll post this resource on our Instagram account, so if you want to go into how you could use Twitter Spaces, I'll have that resource available for you.
How ironic that we'll talk about Twitter on Instagram.
Yeah, I know. Some FAQs, where is Spaces available on Twitter?
Yeah.
I feel like they kind of
surprise.
With the FAQs, they have to answer every little question that's asked just to get the broad.
Right.
You know, someone probably asked that at some point.
Right.
Who can start a space? Anyone with a Twitter account. Who can see my space? Spaces are public like tweets.
Yeah.
So everyone who is able to see your Twitter account can see your space.
And it's recorded for playback.
Yes.
On your feed.
Okay, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
So it kind of like Facebook Live, when you do a Facebook Live and you can post it, is it the same kind of thing? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So if you want to go through all these FAQs, you can definitely go to the resource that I mentioned before. So really what we're going to get into is the DeSantis presidential announcement and what happened with Twitter Spaces.
Okay, so one of the things that I always pay attention to is when something's getting a lot of news like this, especially for a platform that has kind of relaunched, is that I believe you're going to get a lot of reach if you are trying to use this platform right now because there's so much press behind it. Twitter is going to put a lot of value behind this. So it's a great opportunity to be utilizing this part of Twitter's platform right now because there are so many eyes on it.
I 100% agree. I remember when Instagram launched their Reels. Mm-hmm. If you were posting Reels, you get thousands
in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're first in. So let me just blow your mind here, because when Facebook started with their business pages, our business was in existence, and I was getting on one of my clients' accounts 1 million organic views a month.
Wow.
And that was the very beginning. And so When there's a lot of focus on something like this, the platform has a lot of interest in making sure that this is successful, because they're essentially getting free advertisement, but they're having people on platform. And all of these platforms, their goal is to keep people on platforms.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of emphasis behind this. So right now, capitalize on this.
Yeah, I totally agree. Maybe we need to do a live stream for
We
one
need
of
to
our
do a live
podcasts.
stream for our podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to create a Twitter account for our Market to the Mavens.
I have a Market to the Mavens.
Oh, that's right.
For Twitter.
We need to utilize that.
Yeah.
So for the DeSantis presidential announcement, more than 500,000 Twitter users joined the event, which was ultimately ended and then restarted. And only around 250,000 users ultimately listened to it. So there was a bit of a crashing issue with the platform during this event, and a lot of people were actually kind of upset about it and had mentioned that they weren't ready for this and that they didn't do their due diligence on preparing for this. But I think you have some other insight on that.
So the 250,000 people that you're talking about, they participated in the event. They were there during the live event.
Yes.
But actually, it's had more than 10 million views now.
Yeah, so after the event was posted, since it's been posted, not live, there was 500,000 people live that were trying to get into the event. Since it has been posted, it has reached 10 million views.
Yep. And so one of the things that happened was, originally Elon Musk's account, who has 100 million followers, was the account that was hosting, if you will, the spaces. And the problem with that is he had so many people trying to jump in that it crashed the system. So what they did was they actually switched to 2 other people. It was a bandwidth issue. And when I say bandwidth, what it really means is that the servers couldn't handle the volume that was going in there.
So they didn't expect to have 500,000 people trying to jump on at once?
No, they've never experienced that before. But they also had the person that was hosting it with 100 million followers, probably something they should have considered.
Yeah, because usually I don't know a whole lot about servers, but from the little bit that I do know because of you and Tirza, aren't you able to create more bandwidth to prepare for events like this?
Absolutely. And that is something that they underestimated and their engineers underestimated. Yeah. But you got to remember, they are only working with a quarter of the staff that they previously have. So it was a perfect storm. At the same time, we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
No news is bad news.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to kind of get into that. So really what DeSantis was doing is he was going direct to consumer versus the mainstream media, which is CBS, NBC, the news platforms. And because he's doing that, doesn't he have a little bit more control over his voice?
Absolutely. So there's a few things that are with that, is that, first of all, he knows his audience of who he's going after. And the Twitter population, believe it or not, is actually one of the highest educated platforms as far as users. And so that's interesting that he chose Twitter, although I'm not surprised, because I believe that behind the scenes, Elon Musk is really trying to advocate for that. But the other thing that Twitter and Elon Musk have really been pushing, the narrative they've been pushing, is freedom of speech.
Yep.
And where all of this comes together, that I think is just so ironic, is that all of the major news medias are controlling the narratives. They are
Yep.
where we get the majority of our news and information, where we have a platform right now that is talking about freedom of speech and not having things censored so much, within reason. And they've made that very clear, within reason. So what's interesting to me is the backlash, all of the backlash.
Yep.
When I say all, I literally mean all of the bad news.
Every single platform I was on was a news platform.
And they are all traditional media.
Yep.
So, and when we're talking about traditional media, we're talking about the big conglomerates: NBC, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, the New York Times. the conglomerates,
Yeah.
and they are pushing how big of a fail it was. But the reality is they're just perpetuating this so more people are interested.
You think they're perpetuating it, or you think they're trying to give Twitter a bad reputation? Or do you think it was a mishap on their part where they were like, we're going to give Twitter a bad reputation, but really all they're doing is putting out Twitter Spaces to more people?
So at the end of the day, I don't think they've hurt Twitter Spaces at
No,
all.
but do you think that was their intention?
Of course it was. It was to
Okay.
say to the presidential candidates, don't ever try that again because it really performed poorly and
Right.
it was a bad idea. But the reality is we're all still talking about it. And also those news medias, it's free advertising for Twitter.
Yeah.
I guarantee Elon Musk is like, this is golden. This is exactly what we wanted because every headline has the name Twitter in it.
Yeah.
So people are going over there just simply out of curiosity to see what this is about.
And did you see what Biden did?
He immediately tweeted a link, which is ironic.
To his donation.
Yes, to his
campaign.
donation page saying that this link works,
Yeah.
which means they were watching the live broadcast and basically playing off the fact that it wasn't working.
Yep.
So, again, it worked.
Yeah.
It got a lot of people interested, and we are still talking about it.
And I don't know if that was Musk's intention. I obviously wasn't his intention. He obviously wanted it to work, but because it didn't work, they honestly got more media coverage because of it.
I have to say this because I think it's really important. I think he is so incredibly smart for not being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Because there is so much data that you learn from failures that he doesn't spend a lot of time kind of beating himself up from it. He uses those failures towards getting better at something.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think he even considers this a failure. It's kind of like, that was awesome. We've got data. Now we know where to go. It's like now, and it's interesting. I want to say this too, because this is a little bit off topic, but I think it's important. One of the reasons that he left AI is because the nature of AI is we fix it after we find the problem, because that's just the way technology works. Until we break it, we don't know where the problem is.
Right.
And he thinks that's a dangerous thing to be in because AI is automatically generating stuff. So I just think that lends to the overall experience and the success of this. We could even call it a relaunch, because this has been around long enough, but nobody really has heard about it until now.
Yep.
But also, kudos to DeSantis, because his campaign is getting so much free publicity. They pay for this on the major networks to get this kind of advertising and
this
exposure,
is free.
and they're getting it for free.
Yep. Yep. So,
Brilliant.
do you think, well, you already touched on this, but you definitely think that businesses should be utilizing Twitter Spaces now?
Right now,
Right now.
I think that we have a unique opportunity in a short window.
Yeah.
Whether this is going to be a longevity thing, I don't know. But I definitely think while there is a curiosity, you should be over here doing things on this platform for sure.
Yeah. And what would that look like? Would it look like doing a podcast? Would it look like just doing informational videos? What would you recommend?
So I wouldn't recommend that you start something from scratch.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you utilize this platform to publish things that you're already doing. So for example, you brought up our podcast. We could be doing our podcast simultaneously while we're recording it
Yep.
on Twitter Spaces. What happens is that you don't have a tested product that you're trying to utilize a new platform in addition to. So I think it should be something that you already have established.
Yeah. And how would you promote that? Would you promote that on all your
Yes.
social media platforms,
Absolutely.
on your website, like make it a big event?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even if it is like a webinar and not necessarily a podcast.
Absolutely.
A webinar is a really easy way to give information about your service or a hot topic in your industry where you don't have to put together a whole podcast production.
But you are not Twitter. So failing is not going to win for
Yeah.
you. So make sure that it is an established type of event and product that you are already offering in other areas. that you've kind of honed your craft, then you can utilize this additional platform.
What about a company that's not utilizing video at all right now? You think they should just kind of stay away from it for a little bit?
I think they're going to be left behind
Yeah.
if they are not doing some kind of video.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our society, which we're going to get into a little bit more, our society is so heavily video oriented. And so I don't think that Twitter Spaces is the first place that you should start.
I'm sorry, it's not video, it is just audio. So because it is just audio, it does need to be a podcast type platform.
Correct.
So it should be a podcast. You can even do a webinar without the visual.
Absolutely.
But that is a little bit different because you're not going to have any visual to go along. You can't show things like resources. You have to be able to speak it.
It's very hard for people to get engaged and ask questions on a live audio only.
Yeah.
Unless they're experienced in that platform. So you're going to want to be very prepared. Like you were talking about, if you have an event that you're promoting, you really want to have questions ahead of time.
Yeah.
And you want them to be submitted ahead of time, because on the fly, it can get disorienting a little bit if people aren't prepared for it.
And you can go down rabbit holes and get a little lost and off subject.
And the reason is, just from a broadcasting kind of standpoint, is that unless you're trained in broadcasting, a lot of people don't really need to read the people.
Yeah.
But most people need to see the person that they're talking to kind of gauge their conversation, where the direction it's going, unless they're trained in that way or just naturally really good at it. So I would recommend that if you don't currently have a podcast, you currently don't have any experience with doing any kind of audio only webinar, then this is not the time to start.
Yeah.
But if you have a very well established podcast, if you have a brand that is already working and already well established, what I'm recommending is that you use this platform, add this platform immediately. I'm not saying forever, because we don't know where this is going to go. I'm just saying that this is hot right now, or trending right now, that you have a great opportunity to be able to get in front of this.
I also think that if you're going to do an audio version on Twitter, that you need to also video it like we do with the podcast, and then post that on your other platforms.
Yeah.
That's a great way to cross-reference platforms.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's really all I have for that topic. So, what we're going to go into next is generational marketing and how you should be marketing to each generation. And the generations we're going to go over are Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, and Baby Boomers. And we're going to go over SEO, social media, email marketing, and even text marketing, because I think that's really important these days. And so we'll start with Gen Z, which is the years born from 1997 to 2012. So my brother is in this category, and so we have firsthand experience with seeing this generation. I've been around all his friends, and you know, they are a lot different. I'm a millennial, and
I'm a Gen X.
Yeah, so we have the 3 generations in one household.
Yep.
So I think we have some good personal experience.
Yeah.
And with Gen Z, there are some things to note that I have on reference when it comes to marketing. So they're very value-based. They like when brands are connected to their values. And then they also like instant gratification.
Yep.
So they are the number 1 generation to do shopping straight from Instagram.
Yep.
They also capitalize on experiences and storytelling and things like that. And so that goes into the number 1 way to promote to Gen Z, in my opinion, and you might not agree with this, is influencer marketing.
Maybe.
I think that they really look up to those influencers that are in their same age demographic.
Well, I think we got to be very careful about being too general, and because I think there's always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
I think they probably have the largest audience that would be impacted by influencers, but I feel like they are a generation that sometimes go outside the box of what we think they are.
Okay.
because we expect them to be a certain way and they don't really always fall in line. I think they're one of the only generations that is that way right now.
Yeah.
I think the other generations are very predictable. I think Gen Z is young enough that they are still coming into who they are. So I think to generalize with them and just blanket do everything the way that it's kind of recommended is not something that necessarily is going to be consistent across the board. And it's one of those things that they'll surprise you.
Yeah.
So, and you have to realize too, is that because they're the generation that was born in an established online community, the first generation for that, that's the norm to them, where they kind of every generation is always wanting to be the exception or go outside of what the norm is, kind of make their own mark.
Yeah.
And so we have to realize that even though that's what we're predicting that they're going to do, they're going to surprise us. I really believe that they are. They're going to change things. I feel that they are the generation that is craving the most human connection, because the norm for them for all of their life has been communication through devices.
Yep. And I want to mention the LL Bean campaign.
This is a great story.
Yeah,
I love this story.
That they did to specifically target Gen Z.
Yeah.
So LL Bean is a outdoors equipment company like REI. We don't have any in Texas, so I didn't know right off the bat who they were. They are mainly on the east side.
East Coast.
Yeah. East Coast. And so they did a campaign in May to partner with, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so they wanted to partner their campaign with mental health awareness. And they announced across brand channels that it would be taking a pause, leaving behind outdoor tips and images, and leaving on all of their platforms that they are off the grid, basically saying that they are taking time off social media for their mental health to spend more time outdoors.
So they're practicing what they preach.
Yes.
And they're partnering for a healthy cause.
Correct.
Yes.
And so not only that, but I think this was honestly brilliant. They partnered with Strava is known for an outdoor tracking app. A lot of people use it for hiking and trail running and things along those lines.
And ratings of any of these hikings
Trails.
And outdoors, which is a big deal. So there's a huge community already behind it.
Yep.
And that target audience is also their audience for both brands.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they partnered with Strava, and you could join the challenge. And their challenge was they wanted the people who joined the challenge to collectively get 500,000 hours outdoors tracked on Strava. And for every 500,000 hours, they were going to donate $25,000 to mental health. Let me make sure I get this right. Mental Health America is the nonprofit. And they actually reached the first 500,000 in the first 6 days.
So you understand why this worked probably better than most people, because number one, you're an outdoor person, but number two, you're incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
And so they know their audience very well. They understand that they're competitive. And so if you throw out a challenge, they're absolutely going to show up for it. And I do have a story that is similar to this. So back in 2008, when the markets crashed, outdoor ski resorts were really struggling because families weren't taking vacations as much. So there was a ski slope that I can't remember specifically where it was, but the ski slope was trying to get people to come back to their mountain on a regular basis. And they were trying to get them to buy the passes for the season. And so what they did was they developed an app, and they put in microchips inside all of the ski passes that you wear on your jackets when you go skiing. And they were giving away virtual badges. And for the first time in this mountain's history, during the slowest part of travel and season, they had the biggest numbers they'd ever had. And it was a competition, because how fast did you do this run? How fast did your friends do this run? What place did you come in? And so it worked really, really well for that mountain. This worked really, really well for LL Bean, but they thought outside the box.
Yeah.
And they really got into the head and the mind space and the psyche of their target audience, and they built something different. And so my point about this is that if you go and try and duplicate this, you're not going to get the same thing.
Yep.
But if you can get into the psyche, and if you really truly can dive into your company's target audience, and we call it avatar, who is that person? How do they think? How do they feel? Where do they go? What do they do? If you can partner with somebody like that, it's a great marketing strategy.
So the other thing with this, encouraging people to spend 500,000 hours outdoors. What do you need when you're outdoors? Outdoor equipment.
Right.
And so their sales increased pretty significantly. So they increased their sales by 14% through this campaign.
By not posting to social media.
They spent zero advertising dollars.
Right.
All organic.
But it was a strategic partnership.
Yep.
And they nailed their audience.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is said that Gen Z really like it when brands partner with the cause.
Yes.
And so do you want to touch on that for Gen Z marketing?
So for Gen Z marketing, I think that one of the most important things is the authenticity.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many rinse and repeat strategies. When you see something that is worked for somebody else, let me copy it. That was kind of an old adage that people will do. And the truth of the matter is that they want to be connected. They're starving for connection. And so when they feel good about the causes that they are passionate about, and new brands are coming in and basically going shoulder to shoulder with them and saying, I believe in this too, then there's a kinship, there's a camaraderie that Gen Z is really hungry for. And that's just because of our society is so disconnected because we're all connected to devices.
Yeah, so for marketing to Gen Z, you recommend emotional marketing.
Correct. That's the term of what I was explaining. Yeah. Is emotional marketing, meaning that try to speak their language and try to tell the story. Try to get them emotionally connected, not just features and benefits.
Yeah.
There has to be a story behind it, a purpose behind it, something that is going to make them feel.
Yeah. So millennials are 1981 to 1996. So that's myself. I'm right on the cuff. I'm like barely millennial. But I took a test the other day and I'm full millennial.
I would believe that for sure.
Versus Gen Z.
Yes.
I do not categorize myself as Gen Z whatsoever.
Right.
So for millennials, there's a case study. And here's some quick facts about millennials. Millennials are the largest generation cohort in the U.S. There are nearly 83 million millennials as of 2019, overtaking baby boomers.
Yes.
Barely, but we are.
But you guys are a huge spread of years. You're the largest spread of years.
Yep. Millennials spend $600 billion a year in the U.S. We also make over 50% of all online purchases, and I genuinely think that's because we're a little bit more financially stable than Gen Z. I think they might overtake us at some point.
I think they will too. Again, they're just kind of coming into their own, but that statistic is alarming for anybody that is in products.
Yeah.
50%. That is your entire business. Like you're going to capture Gen Z and Gen X and baby boomers, but you have to dominate with millennials.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Is that if you're an online product, that should be your main focus, and the other generations or demographics maybe a little bit less.
So let's talk about that because I see this done wrong a lot.
Okay.
And typically what's happening is, so first of all, millennials they're aging. And for some reason, product, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, product marketing is like 20-something-year-olds.
Yeah.
You're trying to use Gen Z to attract millennials.
Yeah.
It's going to become offensive at some point.
Yeah, they get younger and younger.
Yes, and I'm not saying that you can't have somebody that's younger, but when you have 50% of purchases are purchased online from millennials, they should be seeing millennials.
Yeah.
And like I said, you're going to capture the younger, you're going to capture the older, but you have to monopolize this category.
And play to the target audience that's going to buy your product.
Yes.
So most millennials can become brand loyal, and I can speak to this. I'm very brand loyal, and
Right.
I can also speak to this on my husband's part. He only buys Nike. He won't buy any other brand. He will only buy Nike.
That's funny.
So a lot of millennials I know are very brand loyal, and like to the point of arguing why that's the best brand.
Yeah.
Getting arguments with people about it.
Yeah.
So if you can capture a millennial, they'll stay loyal.
Yeah, they are brand loyal. Yeah.
So with advertising to millennials, what is your recommendation? As like a broad spectrum, and I know you don't like to kind of put all millennials in one category, but if there's some top tips when trying to target this demographic, what would that be?
So the first thing is, like we were just talking about with Gen Z, is you have to get into the head of the millennials. And so I heard a great analogy, and I thought this just was nailing it. It's like the millennials just want to be at the office and they want to be friends with everybody. They just want to be a part of the group. And then you got Gen Zs who are like, I just want to work in the closet, like just by myself, leave me alone. And so inclusivity, I think, is incredibly important. And again, I'm being very broad.
Yeah,
I am generalizing and painting a huge brush on it. There's always going to be variations, but I think in the large part, we have to remember they are the generation that everybody got a trophy. And so everybody's inclusive. Don't leave anybody out. And so I think that that's just the way that they think. And so I think it's super important that you tailor the messaging as inclusivity, uplifting, and then loyalty is something that is very important to them, like you were saying. And so just really writing out that avatar, and then whatever product that you're offering, making sure that that's threading through it.
Yeah.
And so again, when I come back to the example of a lot of the product marketing, I'm thinking specifically like clothing. They always have 19, 18-year-old girl models modeling the clothes.
Yeah.
But their audience is millennials. And so you're not really being truthful to who they are. And you're not going to be as engaging with them. Does that make sense?
Right. You think that millennials are everyone got a trophy? I thought that was Gen Z.
Oh, that is, no. That is millennials for sure.
I think it's gotten a little bit worse with the
So-
Gen Z generation.
Well, Gen Z is inclusivity, but it's inclusivity for the fringes.
Yeah.
So people that were really on the outside fringes, they're trying to bring them into the fold. But it started with millennials of everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
But now everybody gets a trophy, and don't ask,
Don't be offensive.
don't be offensive, and don't say that they didn't do a good job. Don't
Yeah.
say that so-and-so did a good job better than them. You can't even admit that anything was different. Everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah. Something that we had talked about before we got on the podcast that I think is very important when marketing to millennials is we are 50% of the online purchases. Your website needs to be on point.
It needs to be fast.
Yes.
It needs to be very easy to navigate.
Yep.
More than anything, you better have your categories
The
organized.
design needs to be nice.
Think of type A personality of when they're going on there. They have no patience for something that is out of order.
Yeah. Or outdated.
Okay, so outdated meaning that the pictures are last season. For
Yeah.
real.
No, you need to be updating your website content and images.
Yeah.
Honestly, quarterly is a lot, but at least bi-yearly.
Yeah.
At least.
And in my opinion, they'll give you a little bit of a break once or twice, especially if you're kind of on the fringe because of the brand loyalty. So like, let's say in, September, you haven't updated for the fall quite yet. They'll give you one more shot when they come back. But if you, by the end of September, are still in summer, they're like over it. They're
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah, and that's specifically product marketing. But if you go on a website and it looks like your website's from 2005, we're not even going to waste our time.
Right.
you're not going to give me a good product
Right.
or service. So definitely website needs to be at the forefront of,
Yes.
because that's what's going to close the sale
Yep.
at the end of the day. And then have authentic conversations with your brand. I think that is kind of across the board with Gen Z and millennials. You need to be authentic.
Yes.
A little bit more for Gen Z than millennials.
I think Gen Z is very intentional with authenticity. It's almost like they're very skeptical, and they're looking for, like, they're anticipating that you are not authentic, where the millennials believe that you are authentic until you prove them wrong.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the reverse with Gen Z.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to Gen X.
Which is me.
Yeah, which is you.
I'm very much in that category.
And that is the year 1965 to 1980. What year were you born, Mom?
75.
Is that appropriate?
I don't mind saying it.
Okay.
I was born in 1975.
Okay. And then, so let's go over a few facts again about them. They are financially stable, which is so true. They are probably the generation with a good amount of money in our society right now.
Well, we also are the smallest generation, and so the boomers are even bigger than we are, even though they're aging, and we are the smallest amount of years.
Yeah. They care about security, which I can say that's very true.
But they expect it and demand it versus are afraid.
Yeah.
They demand it.
And they make smart decisions for their family's safety, financial future, and things along those lines.
They're proactive at that, not reactive. Like, I feel like the boomers are more reactive, where Gen X is proactive.
Yep. They've seen a lot, which we did talk about. You had mentioned y'all have seen the most. So on here it's the Cold War, Internet Revolution, Y2K, the recession in 2008. Like, y'all have been through a lot.
We have been through a lot, but not only that, the generation before us, like, beat it into our heads what they went through.
Yeah.
But we also, our grandparents were a part of the greatest generation, which went through the Depression. So even though we didn't go through the Depression, we were around people and we saw the way they behaved because of that experience that they went through.
Yeah. They use internet to research businesses, which I think is very true, but I don't think they take website design and all of that as harsh as millennials do.
No.
They are more like, what is your business about? Who are you? Do you have a good reputation?
Now, I actually think that they're a little bit more impatient about your story. Like, it's kind of like, that's great, that's about you, but really I want to talk about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't have time to be sitting around here learning all about you. You know what I mean? Like, what can you do for me? Time is money, you know, like, that's, I feel like that's more kind
how
of
can you help me? How can you make my life easier? How can you make me more stable?
Yes.
Like, what are you?
It's all about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because frankly, it was never about me growing up. So now it's all about me because cash is king, as they say. Like, now we're in our element, and so now we have much higher demands.
Yeah. Okay, so here's some quick stats. Generation X currently makes up of 31% of the total U.S. income.
Wow.
That's
I did not know that.
Especially since you said y'all are a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Gen X loves social media. 95% of them use Facebook.
So the reason they love social media is we're all checking out what everybody was doing in high school and where they are now, and we're just basically using a measuring stick.
Yep. This girl
that is the large majority.
I didn't like in high school. Am I doing better than her?
Right. This girl that was a bully to me in high school, because let me tell you, the generations after us have no idea what bullying was like.
I don't think we do either.
Oh, no.
It was more just like mean girls talking bad about you.
Yeah, we were basically feral and we had no parental oversight whatsoever. So you basically had to rub dirt on it and move on.
Yep. 72% of Gen Xers use the internet to research businesses.
Yeah, because we do care what other people say about them, and we don't want to look stupid.
So Google reviews and
We don't want to make a
Yelp
mistake.
reviews, yeah.
And so we are actually looking for consumer approval so that we can trust this person. Because kind of like Gen Z, we don't believe you. Like in the
Yeah.
beginning, we want somebody else to tell us.
So this next stat kind of plays to your "we'll get frustrated" comment. 54% of Gen Xers are frustrated that brands constantly ignore them.
Yes.
And I think that's more ignore like when you have a question. Like, I have a question about your product or your service and you're not getting back to me.
Yeah. It's the impatience.
Right.
Yeah. And they very much are.
So it says using traditional media could be good because 48% listen to the radio, 62% still read the newspaper, and 85% watch traditional television.
Okay, so there's a couple things that I totally disagree with this.
Okay.
So number one, when they say the newspaper, I don't agree with that. I think that they're using new media in order to read newspaper.
Like online articles.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they're still reading the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, the traditional media. They are not getting the paper at their house. They're not.
This is also another interesting stat is that, and I can see this, 35% of Xers in the US have college degrees compared to millennials who only have 19%, which means they hold more powerful positions in organizations.
So at that time, education was really cheap.
Okay.
And so I graduated in 93. When we would go to college, we were paying like $2,500 a year
yeah.
for education.
When I started getting into college is when the rise in college tuition was going up.
Yes.
And
Gen Z doubled from your generation.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure. Yeah. If you didn't know what you wanted to do, you're like, why am I spending all this money? There was a lot around millennials dropping out of college, and that's why a lot of colleges would put their graduation rate on there when I was starting to go through college. And that's a good point. Our college tuition, that around our time is when that started to skyrocket.
Yeah. Now, the difference is when I quote like pricing for college education, the cost of living on those colleges was comparable, I think. It was just the actual cost of school. That's the part that I see that has probably gone up the most.
Yeah. So let's get into baby boomers, and then we'll kind of go through all of the topics when it comes to specific marketing to each generation. So baby boomers, they're just the funniest ones when it comes to marketing. They're hilarious.
Really cute. They're really
so cute.
Yeah.
So,
and we actually work in this space a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
They are 1946 to 1964.
Yep.
And I'll give some of those same statistics. They are one of the most populous generations right under millennials, and I honestly just think that's because a lot of them are passing away now.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of overdoing because they're on the tail end of generations. So they are big spenders.
I think they are high ticket spenders. I don't think that they are volume spenders.
Yep, they make up the only population group experiencing growth in the workforce.
So what they are doing is they are taking new courses and new education because they don't want to be left behind. And so they're very hungry for additional knowledge. And you have to remember too, that generation was well read, it was a different time. And so they are excited to learn new things that are going on in the world. And so that doesn't surprise me at all. What is really fascinating to me is there are some technologies that were technologies specific to their era that for a while was thought to be obsolete and is actually coming back because they have found that it's very secure technology that can be used for online and data security type things, which is fascinating. And I don't have anything that I'm specifically able to like quote right off the top of my head, but it is something that we are seeing kind of trending in their generation.
Interesting. So they are mainly on Facebook Baby boomers use Facebook far more than any other social media platform.
Okay, we have to talk about this because this just cracks me
They
up.
use this platform to keep up with friends, family, and loved ones.
But they're just kind of bumping along. So
Yeah.
really what's really happening is we've all moved to cell phones, and they know that to talk to their kids and their grandkids, they're never going to answer the phone. So they had to learn how to text. And so they had to get a cell phone. And then when they got the cell phone, it was, grandkid or child put the app on their phone for Facebook, which I'm sure they never close.
Yeah.
And again, I'm being very general because I have some clients that are in this generation, and they're very, very advanced.
Yeah.
They got the cell phone, and then they had Facebook that was downloaded because that was the easiest thing for them to be able to download. They don't know their login and password.
Yeah.
And they also are on YouTube. In fact, they are one of the generation that loves to watch TED Talks, and they love to be able to, they kind of see it as entertainment, but they don't have the short attention span like the shorts and things. They want to actually almost watch a program, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes,
because they don't want to be clicking through multiple things. They don't want to have to navigate as much.
Right. Well, they get lost. So yes, they are on Facebook because somebody set them up on Facebook, and suddenly they don't turn their phone off. They don't close that app. They don't log in. They don't log out. It's just on there.
You want to hear a hilarious stat?
Yes.
So it says use compelling videos and marketing to boomers, but 85% of videos on Facebook that are watched by boomers are watched without sound.
That's with captions.
Yeah, with captions.
That's because they're sitting in front of their TV, listening to TV while they're on their phone.
Yeah.
I have so many examples of this, I cannot even tell you.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
So it also says don't use the word old or elderly, because that can be kind of offensive.
It is offensive, and I don't think that any generation has ever taken that well.
Yeah. So I think a few things to note when marketing just quickly to boomers. Font size is super important.
And very, very simple text.
Yep.
Very, very simple images. Not anything that moves too fast. One of the things I see that is probably the biggest concern is if you're going to use text in any kind of video, it needs to go slow.
Yeah.
Most of the time we've got and it shouldn't be moving up and down or around the screen. It should actually present and then go away.
Yeah.
And it should present for probably 5 to 8 seconds and then go away.
Yep. And then also having email or phone support options for them would be really beneficial.
You better have a phone number.
Yes.
You better answer the phone. And it better not be, I'm sorry to say this, but it better be somebody that they can understand their English very well.
Yeah.
And so outsourcing overseas is not a good idea for phone support for if your target audience is boomers.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's get into the specific advertising platforms that you can use, and we'll go generation by generation.
Okay.
I'll let you kind of go over that. So let's start with social media.
Okay.
So for social media, Gen Z, what is the best way to attack that?
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
Those are, in fact, don't even think that you're ever going to see them on Facebook because that is
Dalen doesn't.
offensive.
Dalen has a Facebook, but he never uses it.
He created it in high school, and he just graduated college, and I don't think he's logged in since high school. In fact, I think his junior football picture is on there.
You want to hear something hilarious? This is very relevant.
Yeah.
So Sean, my husband, went and played football with Dalen, and they want to start a football group on a weekly basis. And Sean, they were trying to figure out how to communicate and put a group together. And Sean was like, why don't we just do a Facebook group or a Facebook
I can only imagine the looks on people's face. Horror.
Every single one of them was like, why don't we just create a MySpace group? And Sean was so offended. He's the oldest one there. He's the only millennial.
That is hilarious.
And so they were like giving him, they were going in on how outdated Facebook is. So if you're doing any kind of Gen Z marketing on Facebook,
and I think we need to be even more specific.
Yeah.
So number one, if your target audience is Gen Z, Instagram stories. Don't even bother posting to your feed.
Yeah,
Because
or share
literally,
your feed post to your story.
yeah, because they're not even going to go to your news feed.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the stories. They're going to be on the reels. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep. I totally agree. Okay, millennials. A little different. I think they are on Facebook a little bit more.
A little bit more, and it's kind of like you were just saying, like they're going to use that for shopping, like in marketplace. They're going to
Yeah.
use that for groups because
Yep.
that's kind of where they get some of their news.
Mhm.
And so they will use a little bit of Facebook for those purposes, not really to connect with friends or brands. Really,
No.
truly. It's more kind of the off around the edges, like I was saying, like for sale by owner or people that are in their neighborhood that they're not necessarily friends with, but people
Yep.
that they can meet, but not brands. They're not going to be on Facebook for brands. Any kind of brands that they are passionate about, they're going to be on Instagram.
Yep.
They're going to be on TikTok. They're going to also be on their website, which I think it's important to bring in social media with website because
That's your
when they
conversion.
visit your website, that's where your conversion is going to be, but also that's where you can do retargeting.
Yeah.
Based on that activity, then you're going to have an opportunity to stay in front of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I never scroll on my Facebook feed. I use it mainly for my groups. My
It's
Facebook
groups and marketplace.
So if you want to do any kind of Facebook group marketing,
Yeah, it's a
where
great
you
place
start
for
your own
millennials.
group that
Yeah.
know you can use to market to those people, that would be amazing for millennials.
Yeah.
I'm in CrossFit groups and workout groups and cell groups and I'm constantly getting notifications. The good thing about a group is everyone in your group gets a notification when there's a post put out.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be a really great avenue to do on the Facebook side of things. And then Instagram, I think they are a little bit more on the feeds.
They are.
Because we were around when Facebook was started.
Right.
So we are very used to the feed scroll.
Yeah.
And scrolling your feed and, reels are now on your feed. So we're a little bit more on that side than just straight stories.
Well, and I would say even for Gen Z, you still should be posting on your feed because they're going to go look at the feed as a whole.
Oh, true.
Gen Z will look at the feed as a whole. They're not going to click into it. They're just going to do a quick glance and then they're going to go back.
Yeah, or go to your website and your bio.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Yep. So I definitely think, and then TikTok, I think millennials are number one on TikTok.
I would disagree. I would say Gen Z. I mean X, excuse
Gen
me.
X.
I would say Gen X is the number one on TikTok.
I see a lot of Gen X creators on TikTok.
It's a huge platform in fact, in my opinion, that's the number one platform for Gen X is TikTok.
On an educational basis?
Everything basis. The only thing they're not doing is they're not searching for, like the way Gen Z uses TikTok is for information. Like
Right.
they use TikTok to search for how-to videos. I think Gen X is going to use other things for how-to, including YouTube and Google. They're a little bit more patient in doing it that way. And sometimes I just don't think they've caught on to TikTok as that's a use for it, where Gen Z is like, that's the only thing to use for that.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Dalen's friends, they will, if they want like a cool restaurant area,
They're
they'll go
using
search
TikTok
it on
as a
TikTok.
search engine,
Yeah,
where Gen X is using it for entertainment,
right.
and Gen X uses Google and Yelp and what's it called? YouTube. So Gen X will use Google, Yelp, and YouTube to search out a restaurant. I think Gen Z will use Yelp real quick and they'll look at the reviews, but they're not like the rating, but they're not going to look at the reviews.
Yeah, I think the attention span is a little bit
very,
less.
very low. Yes.
So Gen X, when it comes to social media marketing.
So TikTok is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only generation that I'm going to split a little bit.
Okay.
I think that in Gen X, if there is an individual that wants to be young, they're going to spend a significant amount of time on Instagram. It's a very vanity-driven space. And so the generation as a whole spends a significant amount of time on Instagram, unless there's that play of wanting to feel young, wanting to be young, wanting to, be a part of, a younger generation. I think that if somebody is not in that mindset, their largest majority that they're going to spend their time in is on TikTok for kind of an entertainment. And I think that they'll use Facebook a lot as well.
Okay. And then baby boomers.
We love the baby boomers. So what's really interesting is they're huge on YouTube. Huge on YouTube. I think they're terrified of TikTok because of the news. And they are on Facebook, but do not have them try to search for anything on Facebook.
Yeah.
Send them a friend request.
What about, because we're not going to get into this, but like mail flyers for boomers?
I just think that mailing flyers is so expensive.
It is.
And even the return that is advertised for the amount that you're going to gain because of it is so low that it just doesn't, it just doesn't translate to a good
ROI.
It really doesn't. There was a very short window, kind of like we were talking about earlier about Twitter and how Twitter is, we have a short window of an opportunity. There was a short window of time when people stopped doing mailers. And I'm sure the audience here is going to probably pinpoint and remember when you went out to your mailbox and all of a sudden you just didn't have a ton of mailers. There was just a short window of time. If you would have been doing mailers during that time, you probably would have gotten a good return. That time has passed because somebody caught on that was a good way to do it. And then all of a sudden they stopped doing it.
Crazy. Okay, so no mailers.
No
ROI there. All right, we're going to go into email marketing.
Okay, so this is really funny.
I would just go down the list, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start with Gen Z.
Yeah.
They never check their email.
Ever.
Unless it's school email.
Yeah.
And that's only because their professors are emailing them there.
Yeah, true.
And they're only going to search their professor's name that they're there for. They're not going to look at anything. They probably have, 100,000 unopened emails.
Okay.
So it is not a good plan to use email marketing for Gen Z. That might change, but right now, if that's your main target audience, not good. So if your main target audience is millennials, you're going to want to tell them that you're emailing them and right before you email them so they will go check it.
Oh.
And I think some of them, their work emails they check, they're really good at. I think this is kind of a joke, but even Gen Zs don't check their work email.
Oh, no.
So it's kind of a joke, but kind of not. You know what I mean? So they're like, why didn't you just text me?
True.
I know.
So
it
true.
Literally is. What do you mean you emailed me? Why can't you text me? So I think millennials is a good way for you to email them, but it is really good for referrals, but it's kind of like they have to really want to kind of save that or notebook that so that they can come back to it later.
Yeah.
Now, Gen X is a great person to email market to. Even though I'm blanketing because I'm sitting here thinking about the ladies in my Bible study and I promise I have to text them that I emailed them. So it isn't always that way, but on a scale, Gen X is a great email marketing.
I know for us and a lot of our clients, the number one demographic that opens and clicks on our emails is Gen X.
Which means that client doesn't have a large demographic of baby boomers because baby boomers love email.
Oh, really?
Love it.
Okay, so
it's like letters. They love it. And again, I'm generalizing, but I'm telling you, if you are marketing to baby boomers, email them. It's a love letter. They love it. It really is.
So baby boomers is really going to be the route to go. I think I definitely agree with that. I think social media is your best bet for Gen Z and millennials.
Yeah.
When it comes to marketing. And then email, baby boomers. Gen X just fits in every category so nicely.
Well, we've been through everything. We've seen it all.
So you're really prepared.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so the last one we're going to go over is text marketing.
Yeah.
Which I think has blown up recently. And I'm not going to lie, some of the text marketing I get is very annoying. But I read them all because I get a text.
But you read them.
I do. I get a text and I assume it's it's a text from someone that I need, or that needs me, or whatever is important, and I'm reading every single text. And if it's a text that's from a company, I'm a little annoyed because
Yeah.
I'm like, this is annoying.
Really? You
Yeah.
made me look.
Yeah, pretty much. But I read it in the off chance that I read it and it's like a good deal.
Yeah.
You never
Even
know.
though I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
And why did you text me? But that is a good deal.
Yeah. And then I'm also thinking about your brand awareness.
It's getting your brand in front of them.
Yeah.
But I will say that people overdo this.
Yes.
Really overdo this. It's from an etiquette standpoint, if you really want to make your audience upset with you, text them more than once a quarter, once a
I was
month.
about to say, I get texts sometimes twice a week from brands. And I think it would be more effective if you did it once a month.
Or once a season.
Yeah.
And then allow them to interact with it.
Yep.
Now, the other thing that I think is phenomenal, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a trend that we're getting more into, is text support. So you've got like Verizon and some of the airlines that are using text messaging for support. I think that is so forward thinking for millennials and for Gen Z.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that is going to be something that becomes a necessity in order to be able to engage. Like the boomers, you need a phone number. Gen Z, if you don't have texting support, I think they're going to just be over you.
Yeah.
So I do think it's something that forward thinking that a lot of brands need to be thinking about.
What about text marketing for Gen X?
Very little. Very, very, very little.
Yeah.
They just don't have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
And so if you are sending me something, even though like your attitude was kind of like, okay, that was annoying, but I am glad that I saw it.
Yeah.
Where like it was annoying, I don't even care if I like it. I'm getting rid of it because it's just invading.
Yeah.
And so I don't think text marketing is a good way for companies that are trying to market to use text for Gen X. I think that email marketing is better, but reminders, like let the Gen X be in control if they want to text, because sometimes it's important to them, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And so let them be the ones that's making the decision if text is important to them.
I also think this isn't necessarily text marketing, but text reminders are amazing.
But a reminder.
I don't know. I know from my
you're
experience,
millennial.
From a millennial perspective, I want a reminder 3 days before, 2 days before, 1 day before, and day of, because I will forget.
I want one text the day before. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't even want it the same day, and I want one text the day before. You might be able to get away with two, but if you do more than that, you are annoying us.
Yeah, I personally really like it, especially for events or appointments. So I think that is a difference. What about baby boomers? I think
sweet baby boomers.
I think you could really hurt them if you were trying to go with the wrong intentions.
Yeah, I think that scammers could terrify them, and so they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so if they received a text that said something in the way of click here so that your phone doesn't explode, or text here, otherwise your phone will be shut off permanently. I mean, text marketing, they're not savvy in the way that they don't understand what is good intentions and they can't decipher between the good intentions and the bad intentions. And the nice thing about the other generations is when there's a text that includes a URL, oftentimes Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z can read the URL and we understand what that means.
Yeah.
Boomers don't understand even what a URL is in most cases. And so for them to be able to decipher what that URL is without clicking on it, they don't have that most don't have that capability to understand what that means. But we say most, like I was saying, there's older technologies that people are becoming more advanced and they're educating themselves more in the boomer demographic. But I think it's a bad I don't think that you're going to get out of it what you're going to be putting into it. I think it's going to be more harmful than it's
Yeah.
going to be good for marketing to baby boomers.
I think you might also get a lot of phone call questions
Yeah.
because they're not going to do exactly what the text says. They're not going to go to the URL. If they're just going to call you,
They are, yeah.
and then your phone's going to be blown up.
And what's even more confusing is the text message, that the number that the text message is coming from is different than the phone number of your company. So are they going to try and call the text number?
Oh yeah, or text back to the text.
Yeah, that too. And then if they get those automated messages where it's like, please call our office, and they're like, what's the number?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's going to cause more confusion than good. I mean, appointment reminders potentially could be something that they see, but I really don't think that's a good way. I would email them with reminders. I
Yeah.
think they would really like that.
Okay. Well, that is all for the generational marketing. I feel like there's some really good tidbits.
I just
in there.
really hope I didn't offend anybody, because I have met some boomers that are
Very tech savvy.
very tech savvy that I've learned a lot from. And then
We
I
have a
have been in Gen
client.
X where they literally barely know how to turn their phone on. And I've met millennials that are just, they're like, I can't even understand technology. My brain doesn't connect with it. So can you just tell me what you want me to do?
Yeah, everything we're saying is very generalized I would say it's the majority of each generation, but there are definitely exceptions to the rule. We have a client that falls in the baby boomers category that is very tech savvy.
Yeah.
And so it's not one way for everyone. I think it's very generalized, but I do think it is kind of the majority.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand from a generalization each different generation so that you know how to market.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's casting out a wide net for a single generation.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So that is all we have for today's episode. Thank you for joining us today on Market to the Mavens. We covered some really awesome topics today, including Twitter Spaces and the DeSantis presidency announcement that he did on Twitter, and also the generational marketing topics. Remember, staying informed about the latest marketing trends and developments is crucial to staying ahead of this ever-evolving industry. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review if you feel like it. And follow us on our social media to stay connected. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes on anything you're wondering. If you have any questions for us, we could even do an FAQ segment.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be awesome. If you have any of that, just shoot us a DM on our socials and we'll take a look at that. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time, keep shining like the marketing mavens you are. This is Tori.
And Heather,
Signing off.